my phone? Anyway.
No, someone's supposed to go down and check up on his family. Call and see.
No, call and
That's not already.
Do you have a guest?
Yes.
Okay. Ya shiga za ka dan adjust wa ga yawa. Ya shiga.
Hello? Hello? Hello, good morning and welcome to the very first edition of Issues in Perspective for this week. Today is the 12th day of January 2026, and if I'm still permitted to say Happy New Year. I think it's still on course because the year is still very new. This is a brand new year, and my prayer is that all of us that God kept alive to see 2026 should have good luck all through the year. January is usually a very interesting period in Nigeria's political history. The Civil War came to an end in January. The Civil War, that's a 30-month blockade that existed in Nigeria between 1967 and 1970 that resulted in over 1.5 million deaths, otherwise known as the Nigeria Civil War, came to an end following the signing of the Instrument of Surrender by the Biafran acting head of state, General Philip Effiong, on the 12th of January 1970. That is on this very day. So January is very interesting. And also, don't forget the first Nigeria military intervention in politics. It happened in the very early hours of 15 January 1966. And it had lasting consequences that we still face to date. And you know how we usually do it here? We interact. It's a class of history. We interact, we talk to ourselves. You call, make your contributions, and we try to educate ourselves. We also recommend books for you to study so you are grounded in some of the issues that you do not know about. History can be good, bad and ugly, but it is history nonetheless. And to forget history is to condemn oneself and future generations to repeat of a retinue of errors. This is the only justification for doing what I do. And I believe we can really understand ourselves here. So today we have a series of international events of the past that we'll be talking about, and we also have national events that we will be talking about. Last week, charity started from abroad, but today charity will begin from home. On the 12th of January 1970, Biafran acting head of state, General Philip Effiong, signed the document of the Instrument of Surrender, which led to the end of the 30-month blockade, otherwise known as the Nigeria Civil War. The Instrument of Surrender was signed, bringing to an end the 30 months of enormously bloody civil war. The Nigeria Civil War, also known as the Nigeria Biafran War, started on the 6th day of July 1967 and ended officially on the 15th of January 1970. Biafra had surrendered on 12th January following the signing of the documents of the Instrument of Surrender by Biafran acting President General Philip Effiong. This was a war fought between the government of Nigeria and the secessionist state of Biafra. Biafra had represented nationalist aspiration of the Igbo people, whose leadership felt they could no longer coexist with the northern-dominated federal government. The conflict resulted from political, economic, ethnic, cultural, and religious tensions, which preceded Britain's formal decolonization of Nigeria from 1960 to 1963. Immediate causes of the war in 1967 included the Igbo-led January 15, 1966 military coup, which resulted in the murder of the Prime Minister of the Federation, 2 regional premiers, the Federal Minister for Finance, and top military officers, mostly of northern and western extractions. The July 29, 1966 counter-coup, which resulted in the death of Nigeria's Igbo head of state, Major General Johnson Aguiyi-Ironsi, the military governor of Western Region, Lieutenant Colonel Francis Adekunle Fajuyi, and several other officers and men of the Nigerian army, mostly of Igbo and Southern extraction, as well as the outbreak of the May riots, known as the Araba riot, in northern Nigeria on May 29, 1966, where Igbos were persecuted. Also, the control over the lucrative oil production in the Niger Delta played a vital strategic role. Within a year, the federal government troops surrounded Biafra, capturing coastal oil facilities and the city of Port Harcourt. The blockade imposed during the ensuing stalemate led to severe famine. During the 2.5 years of the war, there were about 100,000 overall military casualties, while between 500,000 and 2 million Biafran civilians died of starvation. In mid-1968, images of malnourished and starving Biafran children saturated the mass media of Western countries. The plight of the starving Biafrans became a cause célèbre in foreign countries, enabling a significant rise in the funding and prominence of international non-governmental organizations. Britain and the Soviet Union were the main supporters of the Nigerian government in Lagos, while France, Israel, and some other countries supported Biafra. France and Israel provided weapons for both combatants. Nigeria's head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, accepted Biafra's instrument of surrender 3 days later. It was signed on behalf of the Supreme Military Council on the 15th of January 1970 in Lagos, where he admitted the war created untold hardship for Nigerians and declared the now infamous "No Victor, No Vanquished" speech, officially ending hostilities. Still about 15 January. On 15 January 1966, a group of young military officers in the very early hours of that day in 4 major regional cities across Nigeria simultaneously staged a bloody military rebellion, effectively putting an end to Nigeria's First Republic. The revolution led to the killings of several high-ranking political and military figures across the country. The head of the army, Major General Johnson Aguiyi-Ironsi, foiled the plot and later took over the reins of government same day. The names of the original ringleaders started filtering in within military circles same day, and it was later revealed that Majors Emmanuel Ifeajuna, Chukwuma Nzogu, Christian Anuforo, Adewale Ademoyega, and Dollars Okafor were the ringleaders. Others who were co-conspirators were Majors Chudis Oke, Humphrey Chukwuka, Timothy Onwantwegu, John Obienu, and Captains Ogbonaya Oji, Ben Gule, Emmanuel Mubusi, and Godin Ude. The coup, which was the first in Nigeria's history, ultimately changed Nigeria's political landscape forever, triggering the May riots of 1966, a revenge coup by northern officers in July same year, and the outbreak of the Nigeria Civil War. Yes, we are going to be talking about these operations, that is as in from region to region. But right now, I have with me an important guest in the house, and his father was Lieutenant Colonel James Yakubu Pan, the Adjutant General Nigerian Army, who was murdered in the early morning hours of January 15, 1966. He was a very young child then, but he has a very rich grasp on the happening of that day and also Nigeria's political history. You know, being, should I say directly or indirectly, part of history, as his father was a very important political figure in the country then. I have with me Professor Ishaya Chuang Pang right here in the studio. Prof, good morning and welcome to Redeem FM.
Thank you very much, Ferdinand, for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, Prof. 15 January is a sad day for the country, and I would say some people might say indirectly, but I want to say directly you were affected.
Yes, in the morning of January 15, 1966, my father was Lieutenant Colonel James Yakubu Palm, MFR of blessed memory, was abducted from our home at number 8 Ikoyi Crescent, Lagos, by a group of soldiers who ironically were very close to him. His 2IC, Humphrey Chukwuka, another officer, Lieutenant Godwin Oyifo led the team that abducted my father, and he never came back home.
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate situation, and it's something Nigerians will talk about forever. But the issue is that it was a coup to oust the civilian government. And a lot of people have argued that then why the abduction and killing of military officers by fellow military officers? Some are very close, like the case of Brigadier General Zakaria Mimalari and Emmanuel Ifejuna. They were so close that Ifejuna was the organizer of his party that very evening, that on the 14th of January. And in the early morning of that day, he wasted his boss. I think he was the commandant of the 2nd Brigade headquarters in Lagos, and several other cases like that. And would you really say it was the major reason for the revenge coup?
Definitely. In the first place, if you ask a lot of people of that era, they will tell you that the coup was completely unexpected because it was unnecessary. And nobody in his right mind thought that violence should be applied to resolve the issues in the country. And so most people were taken by surprise. Of course, there have been rumors of trouble and so on. So it was unnecessary in the first place. It was even more unnecessary to kill military officers that had nothing to do with the politics of that era. If at all the coup was to have been carried out, it should have been limited.
The politicians.
But they went overboard and shed innocent blood, both of the politicians and the military officers, who were the creme de la creme of that period. And they were expected to uphold professionalism and to build an army that Nigeria would be proud of. And then worst of all, they were abducted by the officers that worked very closely with them, their mentees. And so that added another perspective of betrayal of the highest order. Major Ifejuna was the brigade major to Memalari. So everything in his office, all the communication came from Ifejuna. Therefore, he was able to send signals which purportedly came from Memalari to different officers, and they recruited them unknowingly to participate in the coup.
Yeah, because there are reports like what happened in Kaduna that the likes of 2nd Lieutenant Samson, Emeka Omirwa, and Jonathan Pera had to be allowed to remain in the army because they just believed they were obeying internal security operations. So the man knew that they were getting themselves involved in coup. Okay, now let's talk about your father, who Lieutenant Colonel James Yakubu Palm really was. I've read several accounts how his death really brought untold hardship, particularly to your mother. Your mother single-handedly, Mrs. Elizabeth Palm, single-handedly took care of people, and how the federal military government too, under Yakubu Gowon, took care of all the kids, the children, of
2nd Lieutenant Zakaria Mimalani.
Okay.
And he left second lieutenant Zakaria Mimalani.
Okay.
And his military number is N5. Those before him, Wellington Bassi, Ogundipe, Ironsi, Ademulebi, came from the ranks.
Okay.
They were non-commissioned officer, a colonial officer, and he was discharged. My father, his military number was N14,
Okay.
and he was the first to be commissioned from the Middle Belt region of
Okay,
Nigeria.
from the Middle Belt.
And he was the first trained artillery officer. So that's about him. He was born November 1933, 23rd, and he was a brilliant student. He went through Central Primary School, Jos, went through